Greetings, friend. I deeply appreciate you being here and watching this video. If you find something in it that resonates, a subscription would mean everything. Now let's get into the story. Liam Hunter wasn't someone who flourished in chaos. His routine was a machine. Up at 5:45 a.m. sharp, fueled by a mug of bold black coffee, a short round of stretches, his tool belt strapped tight, and his truck rumbling down the road by 6:20. He wasn't in a glamorous field. He handled electrical inspections, the kind most people forget even happen. But it was steady work, dependable, and left him with a clear conscience each night. That Thursday held no sign of deviation. The project was a remodeled property owned by a real estate developer on the north side of Richmond, Virginia. It was an area he knew well. Shady streets lined with old homes, wide porches sagging slightly with age, and oaks that rustled gently overhead. He had inspected dozens of houses in that part of town. When he pulled up to the address, everything felt routine. Nothing suggested that before noon his entire life would be dismantled. He parked, greeted the client, and began the assessment. Breakers, circuits, outlets, his element. He moved with calm efficiency. He was nearly done when he remembered his multimeter was still in the truck. As he strolled down the driveway to retrieve it, something made him stop. Across the street, a woman was walking up a pathway made of old stone. Her hair, chestnut curls loosely tied, and that familiar red jacket hit him like a punch. It was Harper, his wife. She was wearing the same windbreaker he had gifted her last Christmas. He froze. Maybe she was just stopping by a friend's place, he reasoned. But then the front door swung open. A man stepped out, tall, solid, and effortlessly confident in a way that churned Liam's stomach. Harper reached him and slipped into his arms. Their kiss was long, certain, intimate. In an instant, Liam's world cracked open. He didn't shout. He didn't charge across the street. He stood still, fists slowly curling at his sides. Time crawled around him. Then, without a word, he crossed the street and knocked firmly on the door. The man, Jaden, answered, his expression puzzled. He didn't recognize Liam, not right away. Liam's voice was low and steady. "Bring her out here now or I come in." Jaden didn't move at first. Then, as if his body caught up to the reality of the moment, he stepped aside. Harper appeared behind him, eyes wide, color draining from her face. "Liam, wait," she began. He cut her off coldly. "You chose. Now you live with it." She reached out, hand trembling, but he pulled back. "You don't get to touch me." And with that, Liam turned and walked away. No raised voice, no confrontation, no drama, but something within him had quietly shattered. Back home, he moved through their shared space like a ghost. Her scent still lingered. Her sweater draped over a chair. A half-drunk mug of tea sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Then he started. Not mourning, but erasing. He began packing up her things. Clothes, notes, photographs, keepsakes. Everything went into boxes, folded and arranged with the same precision he brought to his inspections. Not out of rage, but with finality. As the sun dipped low, he returned to that same street. This time he parked in front of Jaden's house and started unloading. Box after box, placed carefully on the curb. Neighbors peered through curtains. Whispers were already flying before the last item hit the sidewalk. Harper didn't come outside. When it was done, he stood for a moment, letting the twilight wash over the pavement. Then he got into his truck and left. No tears, no calls, no scenes. But something inside him had gone numb. That night, the house felt still. Emptier, yes, but strangely bearable. For the first time in ages, the silence didn't suffocate him. And Harper? She remained on Jaden's couch, staring at the door as if Liam might walk back in. The kiss that had once felt bold, freeing, it now felt meaningless. She had believed she was escaping. But the look Liam gave her, it stayed with her. It wasn't hatred, not grief, it was disappointment. And that cut deeper than rage ever could. Jaden, attempting levity, tried to play it off. "Honestly, he took it better than I expected." He joked over a pan of scrambled eggs. Harper didn't laugh. She barely touched her food. Because something inside her had shifted. She hadn't just ended a marriage. She had broken a man who had loved her completely and quietly in ways she hadn't even noticed until they were gone. The world around her felt colder now. Liam didn't rush to erase her from his life. He did it methodically, like unwiring a faulty panel, one memory at a time. Throughout the next week, he kept busy. Her presence still clung to the corners of their home, her shampoo in the shower, her blanket on the couch, laughter echoing faintly in the walls. But he pressed on. He removed their wedding photo with a steady hand, tore up old cards, deleted years of messages, cleared his phone of her voice, her contact, their shared calendar. Grief surged in waves, but Liam held fast like stone. When his attorney asked what grounds he was filing under, he said only, irreconcilable differences and betrayal. He didn't crave revenge. He wanted clarity, a clean severance, no residue. Meanwhile, Harper's new life unraveled at the seams. Jaden's apartment, once thrilling, now felt suffocating. She had convinced herself it was a fresh beginning. But reality was far messier. Dishes piled in the sink, breakfast was cheap drive-through coffee. Whatever spark they had fizzled the moment it stepped into the light. One night, Jaden snapped. You keep staring at your phone. He's not coming back, Harper. You cheated, remember? His words struck like a blow. She tried to laugh, but it broke halfway through. Because it was true. She had been waiting, hoping for a sign, a message, anything to show that Liam still felt something. But there was only silence. And silence, day after day, started to hurt more than shouting ever could. Friends stopped calling. Her sister distanced herself. At the hospital where Harper worked, she caught whispers behind her back, low voices, cautious glances. Gossip always stings more when it's justified. She started dreaming of Liam, dreams where he stood on the porch, unmoved, asking her to leave. Dreams where she begged him to listen. Dreams that left her waking with a tight chest and hollow heart. One evening, she scrolled through old emails, simple messages from Liam she had once skimmed. Eat something. Don't forget your water. I'm proud of you. She read them now like they were sacred. She typed a message, short, honest. Can we talk? Just once, please. She hovered over the send button for nearly an hour, then pressed it. Liam saw it, read it, closed it, and didn't reply. Instead, he opened a new tab and booked a weekend trip, a quiet cabin tucked into the hills of Asheville. No signal, no distractions, just forest, stillness, time. The thought of being unreachable? It felt like freedom. Around that same time, he began to reimagine his surroundings. He rearranged the furniture, gave the bedroom walls a new color, replaced the worn-out bed with a new one, bought smooth, untouched sheets, bright white, spotless, untouched by memory. Every evening he cooked solo meals without a hint of loneliness. He lingered longer at the office, hit the gym before heading home, rediscovered old songs that had once shaped him. Quietly and with intention, he began rebuilding himself. And while he stitched his life back together in near silence, Harper fell apart in noise and disorder. One day, Jaden stepped into the kitchen to find her sobbing uncontrollably. A broken dish lay shattered on the floor. Through broken breaths, she called herself a failure, claimed everything was unraveling. He didn't move, didn't blink. This isn't what I signed up for, he said, his voice flat. You chased me, she fired back. He offered only a slight shrug. And you didn't stop me. That was the moment she saw him clearly for the first time. Not as the man she had once risked everything to be with, but as the embodiment of every poor decision she'd made. That night she stayed on the couch. By morning, Jaden was gone. No note, no goodbye, just absence. And Harper? She was back to solitude. But this time there was no marriage to crawl back into, no shelter to retreat to, only the crushing aftermath of her own choices. In Richmond, Liam opened a letter from his attorney, finalizing the divorce. No more paperwork, no more legal threads to tie up. When asked if he wanted to send any last message to Harper, Liam gave a tired smile. I said what mattered the day I walked out. And he had meant it, Because real closure doesn't come in dramatic conversations or written confessions. It comes in the quiet resolve to stop begging someone to care. It's found in the act of leaving and never turning around. Harper thought she'd already hit bottom, but grief runs deep, and every layer beneath the last strips you down further. She moved into her cousin's duplex, a crooked little place with mismatched curtains and the low hum of highway traffic filtering through paper-thin walls. It didn't feel like home, not remotely, but it was shelter. And for someone who'd burned every bridge behind her, that was something. Her days blurred together. Endless hospital shifts faded into restless nights soaked in guilt. The adrenaline that once fueled her secret trysts with Jaden now felt rotten, like overripe fruit, bitter and heavy. At work, whispers trailed her. Nurses avoided eye contact. Therapists passed her in the hallway without a nod. Even the new physical therapist, the one she'd briefly tangled with after Jaden, barely acknowledged her anymore. That affair had fizzled as quickly as it sparked. Meanwhile, Liam was thriving, quietly, not with loud declarations or curated posts, but with slow, genuine progress. He woke up before his alarm, ran 3 miles before sunrise, began taking pride in his craft again, restoring homes with a care he hadn't felt in years. One afternoon, he did electrical work for an elderly widow in the countryside whose house had grounding issues. When he finished, she handed him a mug of coffee and said warmly, "You look like someone who's walked through fire, but brought something beautiful out with you." He smiled and thanked her. That night, he didn't dream of Harper or betrayal. He dreamed of something lighter, something better, maybe hope. It came in small ways. A waitress's smile, a grateful note from a client with a phone number tucked inside. He didn't chase, didn't push. He let time do the healing. Somewhere else in the city, Harper got a message that made her stomach drop. Liam was seeing someone. Her hands trembled as she read it. A friend from college had spotted him at the farmer's market, laughing with a woman. Not a fling, not a placeholder. Someone who looked at him like he mattered. Harper stared at her phone, then turned it off. That night, she opened a blank email. Subject, "I'm sorry." She wrote it 10 different ways. Each version felt wrong, too desperate, too empty. In the end, she didn't send it. As for Jaden, he had disappeared entirely. The last time she saw him, he was setting her things on the curb in a duffel bag. This from the man who once said she was the spark he'd been waiting for. Now, it was as if she never existed to him. And that's when Harper finally understood the cruel truth about infidelity. It doesn't just ruin how others see you. It eats away at how you see yourself. She no longer knew who she was. Was she the faithful wife, the betrayer, the shattered one, the one who shattered others? The truth was, she was all of them. At that same moment across town, Liam sat at a jazz bar in Richmond, bourbon in hand. Across the table sat Natalie, an ER nurse, grounded, warm. Her laugh was soft, her eyes kind. She wasn't dramatic like Harper, not flirtatious, not theatrical, but she was present. She listened. When Liam said, "I used to think love meant fixing what's broken," she didn't offer platitudes. She simply said, "Sometimes it does. But sometimes love is knowing when to stop bleeding for someone who keeps cutting you." He nodded. He got it. They stayed there talking long after dinner, through dessert, until the bar closed. Meanwhile, Harper had started sleeping with the lights on, not because she was scared, but because silence had become unbearable. The stillness screamed now. Her cousin was out of town, leaving Harper alone with her thoughts. One night, she passed by the hallway mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back. Eyes dull, shoulders hunched, spirit hollow. The woman who thought she could outrun guilt was now chained to it. Weeks later, she saw Liam again, by chance. He was leaving a bookstore hand in hand with Natalie. They were laughing. They didn't see her. But Harper froze. Because in that fleeting moment she noticed something on Liam's face she hadn't seen in ages. Peace. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just a deep, settled calm. And that hurt more than anything else. Because it meant she had been the storm, and he had made it through. Time didn't pause for her. It moved forward, indifferent. But Harper stayed stuck. She spent her hours in blank rooms, trying to drown the silence with work, extra shifts, paperwork she once avoided, anything to dodge the echo Liam had left behind. But silence doesn't tire. It only grows. When her cousin finally came home, she found Harper curled on the sofa, still in the same clothes from days before. No makeup, no spark. "You should talk to someone," her cousin said gently, placing a cup of tea nearby, "before you lose what's left of you." But Harper stayed quiet. What was there to say? That she traded devotion for temptation, that she confused being wanted with being loved, that she destroyed the only person who had truly stayed? No therapist could erase the past. She began seeing Liam's name everywhere, on vans, work orders, even in electrician ads on Facebook. Every glimpse felt like a sliver of glass beneath her skin. The whispers about Natalie cut deeper than the silence. People didn't just tolerate her, they admired her. "She's really good for him," someone mentioned offhandedly to Harper at the office. "She's real, balanced." Harper managed a courteous nod before retreating to the restroom, where she slid down the cold wall and sobbed until her knees gave out. Elsewhere in Richmond, Liam was building a life that felt untouched by regret. He and Natalie would slip away for weekend drives, lose hours exploring antique stores, try offbeat cafes with mismatched chairs. Once, she talked him into tasting vegan tacos. He nearly gagged on a kale leaf, and her uncontainable laughter, bright and clean, filled a hollow in him he didn't know still existed. Happiness was creeping back into his life, but the past never vanished completely. One calm evening, as they sat side by side watching the shimmer of the James River under a sky turning indigo, Natalie spoke. "Do you think of her sometimes?" she asked, her tone soft. Liam didn't lie. "Yeah," he said, "not with pain anymore, more like a scar that's finally healed." She gave a quiet nod. "We've all got them." In that moment he realized she was different. No masks, no hidden motives, just honesty. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Liam wasn't bracing for another blow. Back at her cousin's small duplex, Harper sat at the edge of the bed, her wedding ring resting in her palm. She'd stashed it away in a faded makeup bag for months, uncertain why it still mattered. Maybe it symbolized something once solid. She reached for paper and a pen. No texts, no emails, just ink and truth. She wrote, "Liam, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I'm not asking for your time or your forgiveness, but I owe you something real, the truth. I broke what we had, not because you weren't enough, but because I wasn't. You gave me your all, and I didn't know how to honor it. It took losing your trust to finally understand its worth. I see it now." She folded the letter, sealed it, and tucked it into a drawer. She never sent it. She didn't need to. She was learning that closure isn't something you ask for. It's something you find within. Liam had already made peace. She was still living with echoes. Weeks blurred into one another, then passed into months. Harper tried to date again. A real estate guy, a friendly bartender, a gentle father with laugh lines. But none of them reached the places Liam once had. Each smile or conversation only highlighted his quiet strength, his dry wit, his deep decency. One date commented, "It feels like you're holding back." She didn't respond, just smiled, tight-lipped. Another asked, "What is it you really want?" And she had no reply. That was the real sentence, not being alone, but knowing she'd broken something rare and true. Liam had never lashed out, never tried to hurt her back, and somehow that made it worse. She could have handled fury. She could have matched fire. But instead, he gave her silence. And silence, she came to understand, is a final answer. Autumn arrived gently in Richmond, like a long breath finally released. Leaves turned to embers, the air sharpened, and strangers clutched warm drinks with gloved hands. Life, unconcerned, moved forward. One afternoon, Liam stood on a ladder outside a townhouse he'd helped construct, stringing lights across the porch. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. During his break, he checked. A voicemail. From Harper. He listened without moving. Her voice trembled midway through, raw, stripped of pretense. She wasn't asking for a do-over. She wasn't looking for redemption, just honesty. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not just for losing you, though that pain feels endless. I'm sorry for making you question your worth. You didn't deserve that. You were more than I ever gave you credit for. I don't expect anything. I just needed to say, I finally see it." Liam stood quietly for a while afterward, staring out over the skyline. He didn't cry. He didn't call her back. He erased the message, not out of malice, but out of release. His life no longer had room for ghosts. That night, he met Natalie at a rooftop restaurant above the city's lights. They shared wine and laughter that didn't need a reason. When she leaned her head on his shoulder, he welcomed it. He breathed in her scent, lavender and comfort, and smiled. He felt lighter. He felt whole. Across town, Harper had moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment near the hospital. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She lined the windowsill with small succulents, lit cinnamon candles in the evenings, played old jazz to soften the quiet. She wasn't dating. She wasn't searching. She was simply being. She stopped checking Liam's social media, stopped rewinding to their final moments. One evening, she picked up the ring, walked to the river, and let it slip into the water. It disappeared without a sound. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like permission. Spring arrived subtly. Natalie moved into Liam's home, bringing with her the steady glow of peace. She didn't erase his past. She didn't compete with it. She simply filled the space with light. They read books together on Sundays, ruined meals on Fridays, laughing while fanning the smoke alarm. And Harper? She was learning the quiet discipline of stillness. She walked to work, wrote in her journal, called her parents more often. One afternoon, she passed by the house she and Liam once shared. The door was now painted a bold navy. A bench rested on the porch. She smiled, not from grief, but from gratitude. Some stories aren't meant to end neatly. Some truths take time to rise. What ached the most wasn't that Liam had moved on. It was that she'd never truly loved him the way he deserved. Because love requires a kind of self-knowledge she hadn't yet earned. She had been chasing approval long before she understood self-worth. As the city bloomed around her, Harper stood still, not hoping to be rescued, but finally beginning the long, vital work of rescuing herself. And Liam? He didn't carry bitterness. He didn't look over his shoulder. Because the most profound justice isn't revenge. It's becoming the person the one who hurt you never believed you could be. He didn't boast about his joy. He didn't seek validation. He just lived. And in that quiet, unshaken life, he found something deeper than retribution. He found peace.